My neighbor used a drone to spy on me in my own backyard. I noticed it hovering every afternoon. One day, I grabbed a tennis racket and swung it. The drone crashed to the ground. An hour later, he banged on my door. Furious, "You owe me a new drone," he said. I held up my phone and replied, "You owe me an explanation for this footage." His face went white. I moved into my house about a year ago. It's a nice place in a quiet neighborhood outside Austin, Texas. The backyard is big, with a high fence and plenty of space to sit outside and enjoy my coffee in the mornings. It was peaceful and private, just the way I liked it. Then the drone showed up. At first, I didn't think much of it. It was hovering over the fence line one afternoon while I was out watering my plants. I figured maybe a kid in the neighborhood got one for Christmas and was just messing around. But the next day, it was back, same spot, same time. Then the next day, and the next. Every afternoon, this little buzzing thing would appear over my fence and just sit there, watching. I wasn't being paranoid, I tested it. I'd move from one side of the yard to the other, and sure enough, the drone would shift with me. It wasn't just hovering randomly, it was following me. It made my skin crawl. I started keeping track. I took my phone out and recorded it, just in case. The footage showed exactly what I noticed, it was tracking my movements. But even with the proof, I had no idea who it belonged to. Then one day, I got my answer. I was outside, pretending to ignore the drone while I messed with my grill, when I heard a voice from the yard behind me. "Greg." It was my neighbor Greg. Greg was one of those guys who never really talked to anyone, late 40s, always wearing some old stained t-shirt. He was the kind of guy who gives off a weird vibe, but you can't put your finger on why. He was standing by his back door, holding a controller. I turned around and stared. He saw me looking and froze for a second, then casually walked back inside like he wasn't just caught red-handed. I stood there for a long time, just gripping the tongs in my hand and watching the drone hover. So, it was him. I waited. The drone eventually zipped back over the fence and disappeared. I thought about marching over to his house and saying something, but I stopped myself. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of knowing he was getting under my skin. Instead, I decided to handle it my own way. The next day, when the drone showed up, I was ready. I had a tennis racket in my hand. I sat in my lawn chair, like usual, sipping my drink and pretending I wasn't paying attention. Then I swung. Crack. The drone spun out and crashed into the grass, sparking as one of its propellers snapped off. I stood over it, heart pounding, staring at the broken mess on my lawn. Then, not even an hour later, there was a loud, angry knock at my door. I already knew who it was. Greg stood there, red-faced and furious. "You owe me for my drone," he snapped. I didn't say a word, I just held up my phone and pressed play. The video showed everything, his drone hovering over my yard, tracking me, days of footage, proof. I didn't even have to say anything. His face drained of color. He stammered, tried to backpedal, "It wasn't what you think. I was just flying around." I stepped forward. "It's in my yard every day, Greg." He clenched his jaw. "It's legal to fly a drone," he said. I smiled. "Not over private property, and not stalking someone." He didn't have a response to that. He just stood there, fists clenched, then turned and walked away. I thought that was the end of it, but the next week, I pulled into my driveway and saw it, a brand new drone sitting right in the middle of the concrete. Not just any drone, a better drone, more advanced. That was when I knew this wasn't just about flying some toy around, this guy was watching me. I took a deep breath and went inside. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. That night, I did some research and looked up FAA regulations. Turns out, drones over a certain weight have to be registered, and guess what? Greg's wasn't. I filed a complaint. The next afternoon, I sat outside, waiting. Right on schedule, the drone appeared. I smiled up at it and waved. Then I went inside and made another call. I watched from my window when the officials showed up at Greg's door a few days later. Two guys in uniforms arrived. Greg answered the door and immediately went stiff. The conversation was long and wasn't friendly. After they left, Greg stormed inside and slammed his door so hard it rattled the windows. I sat back, satisfied. But then, a few days later, I found something in my mailbox, no note, just a printed photo. A picture of me taken from above. It wasn't over. I stared at the photo in my hands, my stomach twisting into a knot. It was a picture of me sitting in my backyard, taken from above. I looked closer, the angle, the framing wasn't just some random shot, it was perfectly centered, like whoever took it was lining up a target. Greg. I stormed back inside, locked the door, and sat at my kitchen table, thinking. This wasn't just some creepy drone habit anymore, this was a threat. I went through my phone, rewatching every video I had of that drone hovering over my yard. I reported it to the FAA, and they hit him with a violation. But clearly, that wasn't enough to make him stop. So, I decided I needed to do more. That night, I went outside, stood in my backyard, and looked directly up. I didn't see anything, but I felt it, that crawling sensation on the back of my neck, like I was being watched. I didn't go back inside. Instead, I turned on every single floodlight I had, grabbed a chair, and just sat there. Minutes passed, then an hour. Then, out of nowhere, a low buzzing sound. It wasn't coming from the air, it was coming from the bushes. I grabbed my phone's flashlight and walked toward the sound, heart pounding. I pushed aside some leaves and nearly dropped my phone. A second drone. This one wasn't in the air, it was on the ground, tucked between the bushes, camera lens tilted just slightly upward. It had been sitting there the whole time, recording me. My blood went cold. This wasn't just Greg messing around, this was obsession. I snatched up the drone and held it in my hands. It was different from the first one, smaller, stealthier, something you could hide easily. I turned it over, no markings, no stickers, nothing to ID it. I took a deep breath, went inside, and powered up my laptop. If Greg wanted to watch me, I'd watch him back. I searched for nearby drone frequencies. I wasn't an expert, but I found a few online tools that let me scan for active signals. I didn't expect much, but then, right as I was about to give up, I saw it, an unsecured drone feed. My hands trembled as I clicked the link. A live video popped up. It wasn't showing my yard, it was showing my house. The angle was from the street, a few houses down. The camera was zoomed in on my front windows. My stomach dropped. Greg wasn't just watching me from his backyard, he had cameras elsewhere. I turned off the lights. You can click on share and more to see if there is a part 2. In my house, I moved to the side of the window, carefully peeking outside. A dark-colored sedan sat parked down the street. I stared at it, my pulse hammering in my ears. Was someone inside? I went back to the drone feed. The camera shifted slightly, focusing on my front door. I clenched my jaw. I wasn't playing defense anymore, I was going on the offensive. The next morning, I made some calls. First, I called a friend who worked in cybersecurity. I told him everything. He walked me through some basic network scanning and helped me set up a counter-surveillance system in my home. Then, I called the local private investigator. I needed proof that Greg was behind all of this. While I waited, I made sure to act normal. I still sat outside, as usual, pretending nothing was wrong. But now, every time the drone showed up, I smiled at it and gave a little wave. I wanted Greg to think I wasn't scared. Then something happened that threw everything sideways. I came home one afternoon to find my backyard gate open. I never left it open, ever. I stepped inside cautiously, looking around. Everything seemed normal. My grill was still there, my lawn chair untouched. Then I noticed it, a shovel. It was leaning against the side of my house, half buried in the dirt, and next to it was a freshly dug hole, small but deep. I stood there, my heart pounding, trying to make sense of it. Was it a warning? Some kind of message? Or was Greg planning something? I didn't touch anything. Instead, I called the Pi and told him to come over immediately. He arrived within the hour, took one look at the hole, and his face went tense. "You didn't dig this?" he asked. I shook my head. He pulled on gloves, grabbed a small trowel from his car, and carefully dug around the hole. A few inches down, he hit something solid. My breath caught as he pulled it out, a plastic bag. He opened it, and inside was a USB drive. We looked at each other. "Don't plug it in," he said immediately. "It could be anything, a virus, malware, a setup." I nodded, my hands clammy. "So, what do we do?" The Pi exhaled. "We get someone who can open it safely and figure out what the hell Greg is up to." I looked back at the hole in my yard. Greg wasn't just watching me anymore, he was trying to frame me for something. The Pi took the USB drive with him, promising to have someone analyze it safely. I spent the rest of the night pacing my house, checking the windows, and jumping at every noise. I hardly slept. My mind kept replaying the same thought over and over. Greg didn't just want to spy on me, he wanted to set me up for something. I didn't know what, but I wasn't waiting around to find out. The next morning, the Pi called. "You need to see this," he said, his voice tight. "Meet me at my office." I drove there, my hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The moment I walked in, he turned his monitor around, and I felt like the ground dropped out from under me. The USB contained footage of me, but edited, manipulated clips of me standing in my backyard, altered to make it look like I was peering into windows. Footage of me standing by my fence, edited to make it seem like I was watching Greg's house. Then the final video, a grainy night vision clip of someone sneaking around a backyard. The figure's face was blurred, but the build, the posture, it was me, or at least that's what Greg was trying to make people believe. I staggered back from the screen. "What the hell is this?" The Pi rubbed his face. "Greg was making a case against you. If you hadn't found that drive, I'd bet anything he was planning to find it himself and turn it in, maybe to the cops, maybe just to the neighbors. Either way, he was setting you up as the creep." I felt sick. I thought the spying was bad, but this was war. I didn't go home right away. I sat in my car for a long time, trying to steady my breathing. Greg wanted me to be the villain, he wanted me to feel helpless. But I wasn't going to let him win. I had proof now. I drove to the police station, filed a formal report, and handed over everything, the videos, the FAA complaint, the footage from the USB. I didn't know if they'd actually do anything, but at least there was now official documentation of Greg's behavior. Then I went home and waited. It didn't take long. That evening, I saw Greg's front door fly open. He was standing on his porch, phone in hand, pacing angrily. I knew exactly what had happened, the police had visited. I walked outside, just stood on my lawn, arms crossed. Greg noticed me immediately, his face twisted in rage. "You think you're so smart," he spat. "I know I'm smarter than you," I shot back. He started walking toward me, fists clenched. I didn't move. I wasn't scared of him, not anymore. "You ruined my life," he growled. I let out a laugh, a sharp, bitter thing. "Your life? You've been stalking me for months. You planted evidence. You tried to make me look like a creep. And for what?" His jaw tightened, his nostrils flared. Then, to my utter shock, his face crumpled. He looked away, his shoulders trembling. "You don't know what it's like," he muttered. Something about his tone made me pause. "What?" He exhaled sharply, running a hand over his head. "You think I'm some pervert, don't you? Just some guy watching people for fun?" I didn't answer. He gave a bitter laugh. "My wife left me last year, took the kids. I sit in that house all day, alone. No one talks to me. No one notices me. His voice broke slightly. I just wanted to feel like I was part of something. I clenched my jaw. So, you watched me, filmed me, made it look like I was a damn criminal? He swallowed hard. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I felt a mix of emotions, anger, disgust, pity. I wanted to scream at him, tell him he deserved everything coming his way. But I also saw something in his face, defeat. I hope you can help, Greg, I said finally. Because if I ever see another drone, another camera, another anything, I will destroy your life the way you tried to destroy mine. For the first time, Greg looked scared. He nodded once. A week later, the for sale sign went up in his yard. He was gone by the end of the month. I kept waiting to feel relieved, but the truth was, I never felt safe again. I put up security cameras, changed my locks, stopped sitting outside as much. It didn't matter that Greg was gone, the damage had already been done.